Our main topic this week here on Mastering Dungeons is the Psion Subclass, where we look, oh, it hurts, while we look at the subclasses and the disciplines given to us in this Unearthed Arcana playtest. Last week, we looked at the history of psionics and psions in D&D, going all the way back to the original OD&D set, all the way up until 5th edition, where we sit right now. Mike Merles had an interesting look at this playtest. We will talk about that in our news section next week, about how he broke this down. I wanted to wait to talk about that until we had our chance to go through the rest of this subclass.
Awesome.
Anything you want to note before we dive in and get our brains wrecked by the Psion?
I'm going to jump right in. I mean, Psionic Disciplines is what we're going to start with. And so it was at level 2. I was just looking back. Okay, at level 2, we talked about last show, you get 2 disciplines of your choice. You can use 1 discipline each turn, only once per turn, unless otherwise noted. And then you get another 2 options at level 10 and at level 17. So you'll have 2 of these early on, 2 at your late mid game, and then 2 at your real end game. So you may only see 2 in your career, given kind of common play levels.
Yeah,
but you might get 4.
So let's take a quick look at some of these, and if there are any notes we wanted to make. The first one is biofeedback. So when you cast a particular spell, either a necromancy or transmutation spell, as a psion spell. So if you're multi-class, I assume you can't do this unless it's a psion spell. We'll see.
It does say a psion spell, which is...
When you cast a psion spell from the necromancy or transmutation school, you can expend 1 psionic energy die and roll it. You gain a number of temporary hit points equal to the number rolled on your plus your intelligence modifier.
I feel like that low should levels, trigger all listeners to drink because it's temporary hit points.
Yep. And it's 1 roll of 1 psionic die. So starting at first level, you get the D6, and then all the way up at 17th level, you begin getting the D12s.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And so I want to put this one with the next one, which is Destructive Thoughts.
Yeah.
Same deal. You cast a psion spell, Conjuration or Evocation, and the creature succeeds on a saving throw. You expend 1 psionic die and roll it. That creature takes psychic damage equal to the number rolled plus your intelligence modifier. So both of these are something happens with a certain spell, roll the die, and either add temporary hit points to yourself or do damage to the creature. There seems to be this belief in this edition, maybe, with these designers, that something that works at low levels still works at high levels, except to increase the die type. So say I'm doing these at 2nd level. I want to get temporary hit points. Okay, I rolled the D6, average is 3, add 6. At 2nd level, I'm getting 6 temporary hit points. Okay, at 2nd level, that's significant, right? That could be like a 33% increase in my hit points.
Level 17.
At level 17, I'm rolling a D12 and adding my modifier. So now it's 6 and maybe plus 5 or 6. So now I'm adding 12 temporary hit points, which is what percentage of my max at level 17.
And also, other classes are giving you that many hit points, like an artifice or whatever, possibly all the time at pretty low levels, far below 17th. So you're just kind of embarrassing yourself when you use this power at high levels.
Yeah.
It requires. So, there's this part you're talking about. The part that really fired me up was just, I feel like designers in this edition have really been digging into this. And now here come the features. And I'm thinking, there'll be a lot of cool different features. And no, it's a template that I copy pasted. And that's not necessarily bad, but it's here are 2 schools. Here's the thing what you do with your energy die. And there's only so much interest that I can get out of that, right?
Mhm.
And so that's A. B, I am now being told I must focus which spells I cast. Why do we want players to do that?
Right.
It's okay to, like, say, have feats in other editions that you say when you cast a spell that deals cold. Okay, if you want to be cold themed,
Mhm.
you choose that feat and it gives you a little bonus for doing that. Fine. Here we're baking into the class that you should focus on certain spells.
Mhm.
And I don't know that's even good play. A.
Yeah. Yeah.
B, I'm going to
Yeah.
shut up in a second. B, it forces, I think I have like 3 Bs now. It forces you to, design wise, to say, well, is this a trap? Because how many necromancy and transmutation spells are there? How many conjuration or evocation? Is there an even spread across my psionic spells? And the answer is no. Some have
Yeah.
very few and very bad spells. Some have a lot. So some of these disciplines are actually traps.
Mhm. Yeah.
Why?
Here's my typical disclaimer that we are not picking on any particular designers.
True. True.
We have made things much, much, much worse than this. We have fallen into the same traps that we're talking about. So
Mm-hmm.
we are not picking on designers. We are talking about game design.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I I do not know the answer to, is this good gameplay?
Mm.
Because there is an audience for which this is awesome gameplay. There is an audience for which this player is saying, I need some temporary hit points because I'm low. So I need to go through my spell list and find the best blank, the best necromancy spell, the
Mm-hmm.
best transmutation spell that I have available to me. Does that outweigh what I would be missing? Right? Tactically, this can make for fun play for a subgroup of players.
Mm-hmm.
Does the game want to cater to those players? It does a little more with weapon masteries.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
does a little more with certain other aspects that we've seen added to the 2024 rules. So I'm not going to say it's not good gameplay. It's not good gameplay for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the person that slows the game down or even takes up my mental energy enough to go through and look for the best necromancy spell available to me because
Yeah.
of this other benefit and weigh it against the math of, would
Yeah.
I be better just casting, flame strike?
Yeah.
Uh,
I think the
so
game
yeah,
is also, like seeing temporary hit points again, right? And the other one is a sort of reaction of adding extra damage after you. So a creature succeeds on a saving throw against your spell. You're
right.
doing some psychic damage, so you still do some damage. As you said, I'm not sure that scales particularly well or is meaningful. These are sort of like, you could say that this is the mechanic. Like when you do a thing, you'll get temporary hit points. When you do a thing,
Yeah.
you'll deal some damage even when they saved against your spell, and you have no idea what class they are.
Yeah.
And I know it's really hard to balance things that aren't formulaic, but I
Mhm.
think that's also where creative play lies. And I'd rather
Yeah.
see a more interesting set of options for the disciplines, because as we talked about, these psionic disciplines, you start at level 2. This is a big expression of who you are,
Mhm.
right? It's a major thing that's going on at your level 2, at your low level area, and then later you'll get a little more at level 10. Right? You are, as a class, a spellcaster. So when we dig further into spellcasting, then it feels less like you're special, right? It's more spellcasting. Like that's, this is, to me, would have been a great opportunity to, let's say, dare I say, blow your mind about
Mhm.
what the Scion is and how they express themselves instead of sort of the typical things they do.
Yeah. At its core, D&D is formulaic. Uh, and it can you go outside the box? Absolutely. Uh, go back to the booksellers thing when we don't want the styles to push too far.
Sure.
You know, but you can bend it a little, but don't go too far. It's
This
the
guy
same
bent
thing
it,
here.
right? I'm holding up the Complete Psionics
Right.
Handbook from 2E. This
Yeah.
had the names we're all saying, like psychometabolic and all these things. These all
Yeah.
came out of 2E and sometimes from 1E. And
Yeah.
these are full of interesting things that are happening, right? Uh, that sometimes resemble other abilities. It's not like it's all brand new, but often involves some pretty cool, different, neat things. Yes, balance was an issue. So that's the hardest part. And that
Yeah.
I can see why you don't want to, but this is an easier path that's being used here. But I just don't want every subclass in the game to be you get to add a die to see if you actually hit instead of missed. When someone attacked you, they might miss you by this die amount, right? Like we've just
Right.
seen that so much. And if one class should be different, the Scion is probably it.
Yeah. I'm not arguing with your theory.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm arguing with the actual ability to make it happen.
yeah. It is hard.
Because as soon as you create, there's only so many levers you can pull. And
Mm.
if you, well, I mean, there are, right? You can get temporary hit points, you can heal, you can move a creature, you can help a friend, right? There are a lot of levers, but they are finite. There are a finite number of levers that you can pull without creating something new.
Well, yes, sure. Because then it's just
Without
all
creating
existing
something
level.
new.
Yeah. But we could create something new. If you think like, what was 1E but a bunch of new stuff, right? Or OD&D, right? Like it was all new. And now it's become a formula, but we need not be bound to it. But so let's
So
look a little further.
So
Yeah.
I want you to give me an example of something that you see as new that would not end up at the end of whatever the new cool,
Mhm.
strange, new dice, new whatever is, come back and be about adding hit points or subtracting hit points from yourself or from a monster.
Yeah. I mean, so like 2E had one where you could uh switch. I forget if you like. Let's say there was something in fourth edition like this too. You can switch. You can look like someone else, right? Impersonate someone else, sort of like the mislead
Okay.
spell. But you don't
Yeah.
you don't create another version of you. Create another version of your target, and
Okay.
nobody knows which is which.
Okay. So
So that's not
like
hit
change
points or
self,
right. And
change self
now people
spell.
may not want to target you, or they may need to figure it out. It creates interesting play. It creates options and tactics.
Yeah. I'm not denying that. I'm saying, could you do that with a spell already?
I mean, an illusion spell of some kind. I could,
Yeah.
but it might be a little more limited. I don't know. I'm just, we can do things that are, and I think with disciplines, the way I think it could be done here, given what they've built, is that you have the science subclass has its core things it's doing, and then it
Mhm.
has these subclasses that are the various flavors like telekinetic and travel kind of thing. And so you could play off of those, right? So
Mhm.
these powers could
Yeah.
be more along those lines. I just think that here we see two things. We've talked about the type, which is two schools of spells. You get a benefit when you
Mhm.
use them, which
Yeah.
involves rolling your psionic energy die.
Mhm.
The other thing we find is like this feature, this psionic discipline called Devil's Tongue. When you take the
Mhm.
influence action, you can spend a psionic energy die, roll it, and add the number rolled to the ability check. Or
Mhm.
expanded awareness. When you take the search action, you can expand a
Right.
psionic energy die, roll it. So we covered the actions, right? Like, oh, let's
Right.
get all the actions, and then a few others that are things like when you provoke an opportunity attack, when you make an attack roll. So I just,
Yeah.
it is a very, I don't know, repetitive thing. It's like we took three aspects
Mhm.
of the game and we covered it with a bunch of different disciplines.
Yeah. I'm not arguing with you. I agree with you 100%. I just, having been someone that has gone outside of the
Mm-hmm.
structure and saw the pushback against it, because it's outside the structure.
Sure.
It's hard to say what people want, and
Oh,
it's hard to
yeah.
say what's best.
Here's another
Uh,
thought: is this is
yeah.
already a spellcasting class,
Mhm.
and it's a little bit different in some of its mechanics. So maybe we don't need a whole bunch of psionic disciplines. Maybe we just have other neat features that are core
Yeah.
psion features, and
Yeah.
let us tell the psion story better than to actually go through all this choice that complicates your character creation and has more optimization potential or trap potential, depending which way you go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, part of me, I like that the way some of these work, it's definitely psionic to me in terms of flavor,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
totally.
It's they whoever designed these definitely went, okay, what are the things a scion does in genre, in stories, in games? And we get that.
Yeah.
Uh it's just a question of how do we show that through mechanics.
Yeah.
And I think the main problem with the Scion is the main problem I'm having with the game right now, which is it's all been done. It's
Well, I
not
mean
only
that's
all
what
been
happens when
done,
you go from 3.0 to
it's
3.5, or
it's all been done even within a class. Right?
sure.
You can make a
Sure.
rogue that does all of the things that any other class does.
Yeah, but I'll argue
Cast
a little
spells.
bit that like ego whip, which is a psionic
Mhm.
discipline here. When a creature provokes an opportunity attack from you by leaving your reach, you can take a reaction. So we've
Mhm.
interrupted play for this reaction because someone left my
Yep.
reach to roll a psionic die. So now rolling a die. Now I force the creature to make an intelligence saving throw. So I've stopped play to take a reaction,
Yep.
roll a psionic energy die, force them to roll a saving throw. If they fail, their speed is reduced by 10 feet. So we got to figure that out. And
Mhm.
it subtracts the number rolled from the next damage roll it makes before the end of its
Yeah.
turn. So it's got to track that. The DM now has to write that down and prepare to track
Mhm.
that if they even get to attack this time. The die is expended only if I guess it's just this turn. So if they
Yep.
do actually reach their target, they now must suspend this. The die is expended only if the target fails the saving throw.
Right.
That's a lot, right? And
No, yeah. Yeah.
this is game design, right? Game design is
Oh,
these
this
tough
is
questions. I mean,
for
these are the
sure.
things, right? This is the
Right.
work. And I'm not being, like you said earlier, I'm not trying to be overly harsh here. Someone said, I forget whether it was tribality or, if it was Treant Monk, someone said, this is perhaps the best UA we've had in terms of that if this were actually printed, you'd go, hey, reasonable. And I think that's actually true. I think
Mhm.
this is a pretty solid UA for a UA.
For sure.
I also think, as you've said, it's a 2024 thing, but this UA just goes down a path that we don't have to go down that path if we don't want to. We could, there are other
True.
paths we could choose to take that I think would be more interesting, particularly for a Scion. I guess that's what I'm saying.
No, I am
And for the
100%
game,
behind
right?
you
The
on that.
gameplay of it. Yeah.
Yep. And so the only other thing I want to say, yes, I agree with you that the ego whip needs to be jettisoned or redesigned uh, to make it worth the effort that it goes through.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there are some that are huge.
Yeah.
There are some that you can roll two. Well, where was the
Yeah. Hidden
psionic guards?
insinuation you made a comment on.
Right, the psionic guards is
Mm.
like if you're charmed or frightened, you can spend one to just get rid of charmed and frightened. Make
Yeah.
yourself immune to it, even if you start as charmed and frightened. One is roll two, spend one die, but roll two dice and subtract that number from an attack roll that just targeted you. Well, at 17th level, you're hard enough to hit as it is, most
Mm-hmm.
likely. If you're rolling 2d12 and subtracting that from someone's attack roll,
Yeah.
that is, that's huge. That's nothing like, add a d12 to your search check.
Yeah. And actually, that was from the saving throw. Right? Insinuation. Is that what you were looking at?
No, I'm looking at psionic guards or psionic
Guards.
backlash.
Backlash.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so they also have one for saving throw. Subtract the dice from the
Yeah,
saving throw,
that's
which is
huge too.
also enormous. That's
Yeah.
a kind of guarantee fail. Um, and so that's the thing, is that like there are some things here that are certainly pleasing in play. I just find it to be, I don't know. I'd like to have more creativity, but yeah, maybe this is the game we have, and all RPGs have to face these kinds of questions, right? I'm not saying that, like, say, Daggerheart isn't showing some copy paste nature of its thing. In some ways, that's good because it's stable and you know what's
Yeah.
coming. But, yeah.
Yeah. So let's just quickly spin, unless you had other ones
No.
of these that you wanted to look at, these disciplines. We'll go to the spells real quick. There are a few new spells or existing spells that have been changed.
Mhm.
Intellect Fortress is a concentration for up to 1 hour abjuration spell. And by the way, artificers, bards, sorcerers, warlocks, and wizards can also cast this, where for the duration, you can give resistance to psychic damage as well as advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws to one willing creature. For every level that you upcast, you can add an additional creature as a target. So you
Yeah, and
can
a
give
lot of
them
these,
that sort of
the
thing.
existing spells often had very minor changes.
Mhm,
Probably because the main point of this is bring it from the old book to the new book, tweak
mhm.
it in some way so that it feels new, right?
Yep.
To justify the purchase kind of thing of whatever this appears in. Yeah.
So one of my favorites is Psychic Scream, which is a ninth level enchantment where you can target up to 10 creatures that you can see within 90 feet of you. Creatures that have an intelligence score of 2 or lower are unaffected. They must make an intelligence saving throw. They take 14d6 psychic damage and have the stun condition on a failed save. On a success, they take half. If they are reduced to 0 hit points by the damage from this, whether they succeed or fail, their head explodes, assuming it has one.
Yeah, that's always been great. That's
My old
fantastic.
fourth edition joke was, "And your head explodes, save ends." This is the sort of the same thing, except there is
Yeah.
no save ends. Your head just explodes.
Yeah, and a very popular spell is this level 4 Ralothim's Psychic Lance. Um,
Mhm.
and the only change they really made, or I think the major change at least, is before it wasn't entirely clear what kind of a name you had to utter. And here it says you can
Right.
utter a creature's name, and it has to be their real name. You can't use a title or nickname or pseudonym. And then if they're within range, if you don't see them, it impacts them. So that's what they've changed. So you have to know their real name to say impact them behind a wall. Otherwise, you must be able to see them to impact with the spell.
Okay. What's their real name? What does that mean?
Well, yeah. Hmm.
Okay.
Birth name? I don't
I
know.
didn't know if there's
You
some
got to check the
because there's
social
this
security
idea of
card
a
when you
true name.
attack.
What's that?
You have to check their social security card when they attack.
Yeah,
Three
yeah.
forms of
Was
ID
it
and an address.
what they're the name given by some sort of maternal or paternal figure at birth?
Mm.
Is it like some sort of divine or arcane nomenclature that is assigned to you? Right? Because
Yeah.
there's this true name idea that we've seen in previous editions where
For
you
demons.
have to find out someone's true name and be able to use it. So that was just weird to me.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, we get the typical again copy and paste summon astral entity, where rather than having it being a nature or a beast or an elemental, it's a stat block for a psionic spirit that changes based on your spell level and so on.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, I like that one. That's a new spell. I generally thought, crystal entity, ectoplasmic entity, ghostly entity. It's pretty fun. If you like to summon stuff, you get to summon one creature, and it's reasonably useful.
when I read telekinetic fling, other than the fact I was thinking of like, yeah, as opposed to some other kind of fling. Uh,
I had
I thought for
telekinetic
sure it would
fling in
be,
college.
yeah, exactly. I thought it would be like push, right? Move somebody as this cantrip. But no, the thing you're flinging is the ammunition that you brandish.
Yeah.
So you have to have a piece of ammunition, an arrow, bolt, a bullet, or a needle worth at least one copper piece. And then you cast the spell on that and you make a ranged spell attack. And when it hits, it takes 1d10 force damage and the ammunition is destroyed. So there's no rider. It's just a d10 force damage with this spell
Yeah.
as a cantrip.
Yeah.
All
I
right. And
also
then we
it's
get, oh,
just worth noting that Tasha's Mind Whip had a major change where it impacts opportunity attacks. It does not impact reactions anymore. That had been a spell that a lot of people would use on bosses. And so now that is gone, I think, because of the reaction issue with bosses needing their reactions. So.
makes sense. Makes sense. All right. And then we get to the subclasses. So I'm just going to run through a couple of them quickly here. And
Mhm.
if we have anything special to say, we'll call it out. We have four. We have the Metamorph subclass, the Psi Warper subclass, the Psykinetic subclass, and the Telepath subclass. So let's just start with the Metamorph. Third level, you get Metamorph spells. Third level, you also get organic weapons where you can make your body into one of three different kinds of weapons, each doing a slightly different thing. And you can essentially turn it on and off immediately. So if you turn your hand into a bone shard, uh, it turns into a bone shard, you use it, and then it just goes back to being a normal hand right away. Uh, Extend limbs gives you a bonus action to use a psionic energy die. And then for a minute, you have increased reach, increased speed, and your touch spell attacks can be done up to a range of 10 feet.
And this draws right from the 2E book. I'm holding up
Oh, yeah.
a picture where it just shows, the long hand that the Scion is holding out to, steal someone's sword out of their scabbard, which is a very 2E
Yeah.
thing to do. It was just fun to see those ideas come back.
Yep. You get extra attack at sixth level. And in addition to what you normally would get, which is two attacks when you use the attack action, you can also replace one of those weapon attacks with a Scion cantrip. Uh, Sixth level, you also get quickened healing. So when you cast Cure Wounds, you can expend 2 energy dice to change the casting time to a bonus action. And when you do, you can roll one of those and add the number rolled to the amount of damage healed. And my question here is it really a huge difference between spending 2 dice but only rolling one or just rolling both? Because a lot of times we're seeing this spend one but roll two or spend two but roll one. And I understand that there might be a balance issue, but if you're
Mhm.
again, if you're even at 17th level, if you're dealing with D12s, does an additional 6 points healed make it worth the mental energy to remember, okay, I'm spending two, but I'm only rolling one? If What do you think? What's your thought on that?
Um, yeah, it does take up time. I think it's generally fine. That's probably something a player can track. My thing with this metamorph is that it kind of begs for you to be up in the front lines, but you're a
Mhm.
caster. And I don't know that the amount of healing they're giving you, that the weapons, the extending, it would be interesting whether that works. But I worry you're just not going to be strong enough compared to anybody who's really meant to be a frontline fighter. So
Yeah.
that's my biggest
Uh,
concern with this metamorph. It's fun concepts, but it's that kind of thing where at the end of it, people are beating you up and you don't have a lot of hit points and you don't have a great AC. And so what do you do?
yeah. The only thing that I agreed, and then I saw the 10th level mutable form where you will gain, in addition to your extended limbs, where you get several of those abilities, you can choose one of these following uh, benefits as well. And like one of them is stony epidermis, so you have
Mhm.
advantage on Constitution saving throws, and uh, one of the resistance to one of the following types. So if you know you're going up to fight the thing with the piercing claws,
Mhm.
you can just say, "Oh, mutable form. I have resistance to piercing damage," and
Yeah.
so it's a more fiddly tactical thing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but at that level, I think it you get a plus. You can also get a +2 to armor class with
Yeah.
unnatural flexibility. So I agree that it's not necessarily optimal,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think you would be at a huge disadvantage against a normal character.
Okay.
Not
I'd be curious
against a
to see it.
super tweaked
Sure.
out
Yeah, yeah.
30th
Absolutely.
30 AC, obviously.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah. But yeah, I'd be curious to see how it plays and whether it feels, because at the end of it, right, you need to feel satisfied. If you're like, yeah, I'm going in, I'm changing my arms have become daggers, or have become long swords, and I've hardened my body, and and then the character next to you deals 4 times the damage. You don't want that. So I'd be curious to see how this plays out.
yep. All right. So anything else with the first metamorph subclass?
Oh,
All right. So the Psi Warper is the next subclass. And this is all about tuning your psionic powers to manipulate the space between objects, i.e., moving stuff around and teleporting. So, third
mhm.
level, you get some Psi Warper spells. Teleportation is also at third level, where you can cast Misty Step without expending a spell slot. And you can spend energy dice in order to restore this use. Third level also gives you Warp Propel, which is not a drink. It is when a target fails its saving throw against your telekinetic propel, which you get at first level. Instead of pushing it, you can teleport the target to an unoccupied space that you can see within 30 feet of you that is horizontal to you. I love that. Okay, we're going to make it horizontal to you to keep you from putting it up in the air. However, if you're already up in the air, you can do this and
Yeah.
drop something 30 feet
Yeah.
every time for that
And
extra
later we'll
3d6
see there's
damage.
another feature they have where they don't have that exclusion. Maybe it was meant to
Yep.
be there and isn't.
Yeah.
But it allows you to, yeah.
Yep. At level 6, you get warp space. When you cast Shatter, you can expend psionic energy dice to modify the spell so that this radius of the sphere becomes 20 feet. And then if a creature fails the saving throw against the Shatter, not only do they take the damage, but they are pulled toward the center of that sphere. So you can sort of draw everyone like a magnet, like an implosion
Mm-hmm.
toward that
That's cool.
central sphere. Yeah. Level 6 also gives you teleporter combat. Immediately after you cast Misty Step as a bonus action, obviously, you can cast one of your Scion cantrips as part of that bonus action. So you can Misty Step, cast a cantrip, and still have an action that you can use.
Pretty cool.
Duplicitous target, you can swap places with a willing creature when you are targeted with an attack. So they get targeted with the attack instead. So swap
Mhm.
places with the tank to let them get in combat easily and probably not be hit.
Yeah.
And level 14 is mass teleportation. You can expend 4 psionic energy dice as a magic action. Choose huge or smaller creatures within 30 feet of yourself, up to a number equal to your intelligence modifier. And basically, you can teleport people all over the place. If they are
Including
unwilling, they
up.
get a saving throw,
Yeah, this
including
is the
up.
one where you could throw them, 100 feet up, 150 feet up in the air, 5 creatures,
Yep.
and that then becomes some tasty
Yep.
damage, especially
So,
if you put
yeah,
them into an area above, the pit or the acid or the whatever.
sure. So either 15d6 of damage if they fail that save, if up to 5 creatures, if they fail their saving throw.
Mm.
So there you go. We are rapidly running out of time. Is there
Yeah.
anything that you want to note about the other 2 subclasses?
Uh, see, so we have psychokinetic, which is your telekinetic piece, and then we have the telepath. Let me see if I have anything in my notes that stuck out. Yeah, I think so. The telepath,
Mhm.
it does a lot of work to sort of bolster your telepathy that you have, which we talked about last time, is a pretty strangely restricted telepathy where you roll dice to see the range and you can only affect but so many. When you have ancestries or species and others that are just, telepathy all over the place. And so it bolsters it, but it's still this sort of weird, limited telepathy that isn't particularly useful. And so it's a lot of features for still an unreliable amount of telepathy. And it's like, just cast Ray's telepathic bond, or like, do you even really
Right.
benefit from it? Like, it is such a weird, to me, it's a lot of words spent on this telepathy when the game already has so much telepathy. And that really stuck out to me as an issue with the telepath.
Yeah.
Um,
And
the
the psychonetic, they're all about moving things or pummeling things with their psychic abilities. So at third level, you get the telekinetic techniques. So when you use that telekinetic propel, you can also do the following to the targets. You can increase their speed by 10. You can disorient them so they can't make opportunity attacks, or you can hit them with a telekinetic bolt. So if they fail their saving throw, they take force damage equal to the number rolled on that psionic die. So it sort of bolsters that move, that
Yeah.
telekinetic movement.
For the psychonetic, the one that stood out to me was level 6 rebounding field as just being
Mhm.
a lot of stuff and really needs simplification. When you cast shield in response to being hit by an attack roll, I'm already worried, right? Like, okay, shield
Yeah.
is one of the most powerful things in the game, really gets on DMs. And you cause the triggering attack to miss, you can now expend a psionic energy die to launch the force back at the attacker. The attacker makes a dexterity saving throw. Roll 2 psionic energy dice. On a failed save, the attacker takes force damage equal to the amount rolled, and you gain temporary hit points equal to that amount. On a successful save, half as much damage only. This is a ton to do on top of what was already an interrupt for your shield.
Yeah.
Just wow, like
Yep.
in a game, in a world where we could maybe limit how often shield comes up, you just made
Yep.
it be even more of a pain. No, thank you.
I agree. And that again, it begs the question I asked at the start of this segment, which is how tactical do we want this game to be? For
Yeah,
certain things, this would be like the
the
crowning
coolest.
glory as Asmodeus, as the ancient red dragon, right, attacks you. And oh, they only missed by 3, they only hit by 3. Oh, shield, off we go. What? They did 72 points of damage? Well, back at you. Uh,
Mhm.
It's
Yep. And I
it's a
get temporary
thing.
hit points. And yeah.
Yep.
Hmm.
So yeah. Uh I think my brain is throbbing
Yeah.
from all the
I'll just
psionics.
say, John, again, this is sound. This is fun. This could be in a
Mhm.
book and it would work. It's overall, we talked about last episode. You have these different paths you could choose. You could make this into a spellcaster. You could make it a whole new kind of thing. You could just stick to subclasses. For the path that they chose of making this a class that's a spellcaster, there are a lot of options here. I think one thing
Mhm.
that's good about, we didn't say about these subclasses have very clear themes and they enable those themes.
Mhm.
So that's great. I think this is sound. Hopefully it gets tweaked. Yeah. So there is a lot positive here, despite how we've been analytical, of the design choices and
Yeah.
options.
And what I see when I see this, and with the discussions I've had with others and with you, is I want there to be packages. I want there to be packages of character classes.
Mm,
I want there to be, you want to run a non-magic campaign, use these classes. That way you don't get all of the overlap that
mm,
you see,
yeah.
where the only classes that are healing are the bards. The only classes that are, blowing things up with their brain are the scions, not
Hmm.
these other ones.
Hmm.
And that would make the overlap less stringent. It would make the overlap less noticeable. And people could have a role
Hmm.
as opposed to just this amalgam of so many different possibilities that all lead to the same levers being pulled.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and we see that. I mean, that's why I think one of the reasons you and I talk about temporary hit points a lot is because it crosses over into many things. Are you defending? Are you now healing? Are you? It crosses into all of those when maybe your role shouldn't be those things, right? And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we hope you have enjoyed this presentation on the Psion. If you have thoughts on the Psion, don't listen to us, but go take the survey
Yeah.
and give your thoughts to Wizards so that they know the type of games that you want to play, that you want to run, and can make the adjustments necessary to fit that particular play style that you speak to. So thanks again for listening. Thank you to our Patreon supporters. There are folks out there who we appreciate so much who give of themselves in order to let us give of ourselves. And those people go to our Patreon at patreon.com/mastering D&D, and they give us a monthly stipend, which we certainly appreciate. The Master of Dungeon supporters, we appreciate everything that you do for us and listen to us. Master of the Realm supporters, thank you. We love you so much that you're in our show notes here. And Masters of the Multiverse, you are the ones that are in our brains constantly. Please get out. But also, thank you. Thank you to Zewald Winfrey, Zach Types, Chris Webster, Waterford Wizard, Javier Waziak, Jason Ward from Accidental Cyclops Games, Graham Ward, James Walton, Marcelo de Velasquez, The Valiant DM, Joe Tyler, Tres, Jeremy Talaman from the D&D and TV podcast, Talus the Stormlord, Josh and Lee Wanika of the Tabletop Journeys podcast, Spark from Dunor Games, Tim Smith, Krishna Samosa, Andy Shockney, Chance Russo at Drago Russo, Runner Rick, Ozymandias Rex, Pugnus, Vladimir Prunner from Croatia, Robert Pasley, Ricardo Who Might Adventure, Post Fiction RPG Audio, Frog Prince at Tentacles Squelching Wetly, and thank you for putting us over $1 million over there on Grim Hollow Transformed, Frog Prince. Philip N. Lindsay, Phil Wirt from the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, DT Norris of DT and Dragons, Tom Nelson of the Deck of Player Safety, Falcon Neal, Sean Molly, Mighty Zeus, John Mickey, Trey McLemore, Anna B. Meyer of Fantasy Cartography, Eric Mengi, The Mathemagician, Paul Mata, Chad Lynch, Jim Klingler, Brian King, JT Evans, JR of the Twilight Perspective, JL at Tile Forge, The Mighty Jerd, Mark and Mary's Gaming Compound, the John T. Mantis TTRPG podcast, Hyperlexic, Sean Hurst, Ben Hazler and Paige Lightman, William Harshman of Runeforge Tabletop Gaming, Scott Fitzgerald Gray at Insane Angel Studios, James Fisher, Andy Edmonds at NerdRonomicon.com, Will Doyle, Evan at Nimble Co., Evil John, Dead Inertia DM, Kevin Criswell, Robo Ballin, Calvin Bridges Avalos, Merrick Blackman, Steve Bissonette, Dave Bastiensen, Craig Bailey, Lou Anders of Lazy Wolf Studios, Keith Ammon of The Monsters Know What They're Doing, and Agile Monk of Fantasy Campaign Workshops. Woo! Thank you so much. If you would like to support the show, again, you can go to patreon.com/masteringdnd. If you can't help us that way, no problem. You could also help us by going on to anywhere that you listen to this show and giving us a review. Or go to YouTube. That's youtube.com/@masteringdungeons and subscribe. That helps us out as well. Teos, what have you been up to?
Ooh, I've been doing a number of videos using this learn to play 5-room dungeon technique that I've talked about. There's a general one on the concept. There's one that teaches you to play the Deadlands game in just 5 rooms. And one will come up, that will already be up by the time you hear this, that talks about how to play Daggerheart in just 5 rooms.
Cool. I am on the socials at Shawn Merwin. Right now, I am doing a series of world building tips on both Mastodon and Blue Sky. So you can check that out there. You can follow the shows there as well. And again, go to our YouTube channel and leave comments and subscribe there. So we have busted our brain. My head's about to explode if I fail my saving throw. So, but what are we going to do now?
Let's see. I'm going to create an ability where every time my enemy breathes, I have to pause the DM and let him know that I breathe too.
Save ends.
No, it's just continue whole game long.
Continue.
Yeah.
I'm going to concentrate very carefully on my head not exploding.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah, I should do that.
Mm-hmm. I hope I don't fail that Constitution saving throw every round.